Okay, so I'm very happy to be here with you, and I was honored to be invited to give this speech, this sharing of experience. But of course, I want to share with you some preliminary remarks, because I don't assume that I have the recipe, to shift our courses towards what is meant to be done. It's important that you understand where this presentation comes from. I am a scholar who is definitely in a shifting process as well. I was a clear supply chain and operations scholar. Then I lost some interest, especially in teaching in these topics. And so I moved more and more towards sustainability framing, interest. And so I think that now I am happy because I found my way of teaching again these original topics for me. I come from these disciplines, and so I enjoy teaching them again. And so I'm happy to share with you a little bit the way I frame this topic now. Of course, as we are in this community, it's important to highlight that I talk as a management scholar. I'm not an engineer, so I acknowledge the importance of the technical dimensions of our disciplines, but here I'm more to share what as management scholars, social sciences scholars, we can bring to this type of topic. And I think it's especially important as we are doing this workshop in the context of these important questions: how to re-embed supply chain management thinking and practices in the natural ecosystems, which is not really the current frame we have in our practices and our teaching, and also in society. So we saw also in the shift diagram, it recalls us a little bit the donut, right? And so I think that I can share with you that I definitely try to combine this double perspective. So again, take it as a testimony, and I will be happy to discuss more during the workshop that some of you may be able to join. What I'm going to share with you is what do I mean by supply chain management and sustainable supply chain management. You will understand why. And I will give you a brief overview of my building blocks in my course, in a specific course. And also I would like to let you understand why I conceive this course in that way. For me, is to counter some of the fallacious assumptions that as scholars, as teachers, we still adopt when we talk about sustainability and supply chain management. Defining the subject, of course, we may have different entry gates in supply chain management. The classical one, I would say the very broad and applied one, is to really focus on flows, be them physical and informational. It's about physical assets, operations. Of course, this materiality of our discipline is key, but the trap we may have fallen in is to reduce supply chain management to a technical issue. And so actually, luckily for the discipline, not for the world, maybe recently we have been realizing that supply chain management has a much more strategic for the society and for organization role to play. We may think to the pandemic, we may think to the many disruptions we got, also in relationships to these physical assets, and not least all the geopolitical implications we are experiencing right now. And so here is the way I tackle supply chain management in any kind of teaching I can give on this topic. It's a multi-layer view. I have a layer which is supply chain management governance and relationship management, and you see that my performance here is in the plural form, so you understand immediately that I try to go beyond the traditional performance paradigm we tend to adopt, that this can be cost reduction in the best lead time reduction and quality perspective, but still I include definitely from the beginning social environmental type of performances. And then relationship management. So this, of course, is I would say, the most strategic and long-term oriented type of approach. Then we have the traditional business processes we talk about supply and demand matching, the planning function of supply chain, and then the traditional business processes, right? Design, source, make, deliver, and of course, return and recycle as well. So this is another layer, another approach. Then we have the first one I shared with you with the material information flows technologies, okay? And we also have different operating models that we have been used to teach. It can be push-pull type of approach. It can be brick and mortars. It can be completely electronic. It can be make or buy type of structures of supply chain. So we already have this big issue that supply chain management can be tackled with different entry gates. But for me, all this corresponds to a kind of Excel capitalism, which has been already contested a lot. What is important is to re-embed supply chain management in the specific context. And for context, I really mean natural ecosystems, so the planetary boundaries. I mean specific geographies. We are in a world of global supply chains, but geographies affect this type of practice and approach, culture, history, and of course the specific industry. So for me, it's very important that we put the context back on the front when we teach about supply chain management. Now, you see this framework, it could be, if I have more time in the future, it could be if I want to launch a master in supply chain management, right? It's very ambitious. So in my course, I definitely focus on this point that where I put these red alerts. I'm definitely very much focused on the supply chain governance and relationship management. As a processes, I mainly focus on sourcing and delivering. And Thomas, thanks to be there, in my approach, it's really senseless to differentiate purchasing from supply chain. Of course, we need to differentiate, but we need to tackle them together, especially if we want to make sense of the transitions we need to face. And then, as you may expect, in my course, this context has a lot of weight in the way I tackle supply chain management issues. So this is really my view to the topic, and of course yours can be different. Now I want to share with you a brief overview of a course, of a specific course, but I would say that this is definitely the flavor I give to any other teaching I may do in supply chain, in other type of programs. And so this example refers to a 30-hour course on sustainable supply chain management. So I'm not showing you how I add some sustainability in a traditional course. My course is framed like that, sustainable supply chain management, and it's given to students who may be more equipped in sustainability because they follow an MSc on international sustainability management between Berlin and Paris campus over 2 years. But most of them, they don't know a lot about supply chain management, although more and more we have students coming from bachelor's or from previous business education, so heterogeneity level in terms of supply chain knowledge. As usual, when we share our curriculums on a course, which are the objective of my course? I have 4 different objectives. The first one is providing really the main managerial principles of supply chain management, especially for those who don't have this type of previous experience. But then I have 3 objectives which clearly relate to sustainability. First, critically analyze the interface between supply chain and social and environmental grand challenges. The second, to discern the main domains of sustainable supply chain, their main trade-offs, tools, and the implication for practices. And fourth, when we highlight that these trade-offs are difficult to manage or creating some tensions in the supply chain manager daily and business activities, let's try to reflect together how to evolve towards strong sustainability in global supply chains. Traditional structure, I think I don't really innovate a lot there. Mixer methodology, lectures and guests. I like to make students do a lot of exploratory work, although I think that you need a strong debriefing when you do that. I use role plays, case studies, and then I try to put together research and practice, interviews, field work. And so here is to respond to one of the objectives that was shared before by Kevin and Valentina about developing critical thinking. But I like to develop critical thinking on the specific object of our domain. I will give you a few examples there. Now, just the main building blocks, which corresponds a bit to the different layers of supply chain that I show with you today. I have a block of content which relates to really, let's develop a common grammar about supply chain management, practices and principles. Then I have another block where I really focus on multi-level type of issues. It can be global supply chains and multi-stakeholder initiatives. It can be the issue of resilience in global supply chains, which needs to be taught at the corporate level, but also be declined in the different contexts. And so here, as I told you, these are two important blocks for me in my teaching. But then, of course, I have the functional perspective, right? Mainly with the focus on sourcing, as I told you. And for this, I will show you an interesting content that I develop with the students. And then sustainable transport and logistics, I will not share much about that, but I definitely tackle the traditional topics like pooling, transport decarbonization, and I don't do it alone. I also have external colleagues, like, for example, Eric Ballot from Econdemine, who comes to sharing his more tech and management interface topics, which I really think we also need. And then the industry perspective. This, again, I try to outsource to students because I ask them to choose a specific industry and then try to mingle the research and the practice perspective. So this is just to share with you the main building blocks. Why did I design the course like that? And then I will give you some deep dives into the different blocks with a few examples, because I think that we need to review the way we teach sustainable supply chain management, because not we all, but mostly we have been tending to adopt some fallacious assumption about sustainable supply chain management. I just want to share three with them. I think that most of the literature and the teaching on sustainable supply chain management adopts the view of the business case. That means making green decisions brings bottom line benefits. So the natural convergence between green and lean sometimes is true, but sometimes it's not true. And especially this business case of sustainable supply chain is very often and most of the time been seen from the focal company perspective. Okay, and so in the end, even if we teach a lot about eco-efficiency, about optimization of transportation, I think that if we adopt the two main paradigms which have been discussed and conceptualized in the ecological economics literature, we definitely tend to be in the weak sustainability approach, where we tend to find the right compromise between very often the economical and the ecological perspective, and with a clear dominance of the economic lens, and the strong sustainability approach, where it is about re-embedding businesses and supply chain activities and decision within the planetary boundaries and within social justice and equality issues. It's still very, very confidential in our field. And so this business case paradigm sometimes is adopted a bit simplistically. Another assumption is this tropism of the focal firm. We study, we teach the Danone supply chain, the Nestle supply chain most of the time, right? Luckily, regulators, and Europe is leading the way, but not only, are pushing towards duty, the duty of diligence type of regulations. The recent directive of the European Commission is also pushing a lot towards that. The deforestation, avoiding importing deforestation-related commodities, and so on and so on. So there is a bubbling movement, especially in the regulatory framework. So more and more we are pushed to abandon this focal firm tropism, because the focal firm tropism is a perfect twin of the business case paradigm I was mentioning before, but it doesn't really lead us toward strong sustainability. And the third one, which also I find very much present in our field, is the idea that, okay, you go for a certification, you go for a code of conduct, you put an ISO, whatever certification on your processes, and it's done. And we tend to overlook the political dimensions of this private governance initiatives, of these norms, which very often are not really negotiated with the weakest actors and so on. So even for this, there are a lot of works, a lot of cases on these type of approaches, but in a very instrumental and simplistic manner. And so now I'm going to go back to the course I've developed on this field, and I will share with you a few extracts of activities for the different blocks. So to convey, and I hope you will understand that I'm trying to propose activities and content which try to counter these that I consider fallacious assumptions. Okay. So for the first one, setting the scene, right, the very strategic view, I really think that maybe one of the most fundamental sessions I have on this topic is the genealogy of supply chain management principles. Where does it come from? We take a lot of approaches given for granted. The lean paradigm is the paradigm we are all embedded in, but I try to show how, you know, the lean, the just-in-time, then the efficient consumer response, or the customer relationship, all these different vagues of different models of supply chain management have been created in a very specific era, economic, environmental, socio-political context. And of course, I use a lot of iconic examples, not to glorify them and to say, okay, again, this year, Amazon is the best supply chain in the world, but more to highlight the contingency nature of these models. And so to develop the awareness, okay, so maybe just-in-time was the perfect model at the time for Japanese companies, for the automotive industry. But nowadays, the context, the Anthropocene, is a completely different context from that type. So I tend to, my aim is to raise awareness of the context-related emergence of the history of thoughts of supply chain management, and of course, of the related practices. So this is really very much important for me, and also to a more personal objective, training responsible managers, is to elicit their attention on the tensions between structure and agency. We can change stuff, so structure and agencies, and between path dependency and innovation. So also, I also try to juggle between this more macro and micro perspective.
Valentina, just to be aware of the timing, we just received a message from Pauline. So at 4:25, we'll switch to the workshop. So if you want to leave some time for the Q&A, I encourage you to.
Okay, I was told that I had 25 minutes, but I will speed up.
Yeah, I'm sorry. We had to start slightly later, and apparently they're still starting the workshop early. But so yeah, just
okay.
maybe to leave 5
and
minutes.
Then I think we are not that many, so maybe many of you will be in the workshop. So
yes, I hope so too.
Okay, another topic that I want to share with you is resilience and supply chain. This is a very, very good topic because it grasps the attention of students, but I like to talk about resilience starting from a business case and then try to broaden the perspective, right? And so this year I tested a business case, but then I added very strongly the sustainability layers. The author is Richard Markov. I will give you the references, of course. It's a very nice concept, which is a hype. So it's very important to critically assess it, deconstruct, but also to develop their capabilities to talk and think about resiliences. There is maybe this I will skip. The main message here is I always try to put my own research and colleagues' research into the teaching. So here, for example, I always have topics about global supply chains and multi-stakeholder initiatives, and I try to do in an involving manner. But there is a very nice topic that I would like to share with you, and also with the presentations, you can use it, of course, is we live in a world of customer-driven supply chains, right? But I think it's high time to put commodities on the front again. And so it's about 3-4 years now that this is maybe one of the core sessions of my course. I give a very short lecture on commodities. What does it mean? Purchasing commodities, sourcing commodities. And then I leave students work on a commodity of their choice. I give instructions on how to create their poster. It's a poster like in our research seminars, and I invite them to tackle the sustainability challenges and also the possible answers to these challenges. And just to give you a view, this year I had great deliverables on copper, on wood. These are the other commodities my students were working on. And what is great is that then they go back in their groups and they do a kind of collaborative summary, making abstraction for the specific commodities. And there they're really able to grasp, the overwhelming power of China, the speculation, financial speculation influence on supply chain dynamics and so on. So this is really a kind, of co-constructing knowledge with students. If you try it, I can assure you that it works and puts supply chain and purchasing decision at the high and at much higher level than just choosing the right means of transportation to source them or finding the right contracts. So this was really something that I wanted to share with you. Okay, now this was the collaborative poster and so on. And I think that I stop here. And then in the workshop, we can, even if you want to know more, I can share another point. But at least we have 5 minutes for your reactions or questions if you have.
Yes, thank you very much, Valentina, for this presentation. So now the screen is yours. So for the rest of the participants, if you want to ask questions, I encourage you to raise your hands, and you can unmute your microphone to ask directly.
Don't be shy, guys. We have 5 minutes.
Yeah, it's now or never.
Not necessarily questions, also your advice.
Comments, reactions, yeah, absolutely. François, yes?
Yeah, maybe. So Valentina, you speak in the beginning of possible problems and rather look at what's not going well. But what is interesting is also the solutions part. Are you also offering solutions or pushing students to come up with ideas how we can better structure the supply chains?
Of course. For example, in the posters, they need to find out the solutions, but then what is important is just not taking the solutions for granted. Okay, so joining a multi-stakeholder initiatives. Okay, what is it good? What is it not working there? What should be amended? For example, the governance of these multi-stakeholder initiatives, So we really, critical thinking requires taking nothing straight from the horse's mouth, coming up with solutions, but being able to give the good faith to each of those solutions, And for example, my students, they are very much critical about technological solutionism, right? This is a sustainability master. But then when they come with the solutions, very often they come with very technological ideas. And so it's great for discussion. We say, come on, how can you, being almost a low-tech type of students, and then you say, okay, blockchain will come and will solve the world. And so this is where the true learning happens. We talk about blockchains, what it can do, what it cannot do. It comes to the governance of these technological tools. You know what I mean? So definitely, I'm not in the critical perspective, just weeping about the bad problems we have. We definitely have a constructive part of the course. And even I could not present, but especially for the interviews, they need to talk to managers, but then they need to take a kind of distance, because we also have this greenwashing or sustainable washing type of effect. So I think that we need to force them to be autonomous, responsible. Christine, my friend.
Hi, Val. Thank you very much. I was thinking about the undergraduate students. You know that there are my audience. Do you think that we have to modify the whole definition of logistics, for example, we give them? If we say, well, logistics is all about, I don't know, coding and coordination, on the basics, when we do that, do you think we have to yet say, well, we have to introduce our sustainability lenses included in the very, very basics of the teaching?
I think it's even the best place to do that. Okay, maybe, it depends at which level you address these topics. Of course, I think that giving the basics is much more difficult to talk about this political science related tensions in global value chains. Okay.
Of course it is.
But even when you talk about transportation, logistics, first of all, it's an ideal field to talk about the private-public interfaces, right? So it creates a lot of societal responsibility ethos when you talk about that. And I don't think that we do that as much as we should. And then, yes, even the performance paradigm we use when we teach logistics, and you know that I don't teach a lot of logistics anymore, could be broadened from the start. Thomas.
Yeah, thanks. Great presentation, Valentina. And I like also, well, I love your example of the commodity posters. And I like also that you really have these critical perspectives on supply chain assumptions. What about also talking about the limitations of the whole concept of supply chain and the linear chain? So I know you also work a lot on closed loop or circular supply chains, but also supply chains as networks or complex ecosystems.
I recognize your research interest there, of course, in your question, definitely. But then that's why I said the context of my course. My course is part of an MSc where they have 30 hours of circular economy on another topic, but then it's great. I don't have a specific session, but everything we talk about resonates with my colleagues' circular economy course. And so it's a great playground. That's why then every course needs to be analyzed in the context where it takes place. And so in my program, yes, the circularity of the chains, and so the network thinking more than the linear thinking is absolutely central, also because we have a strong flavor of circular economy.
Thank you.
One more question, maybe before we switch to the workshop.
I don't know you, the others, I don't know you. I don't know if you will teach these topics. Maybe you can also say that you don't recognize yourself in the approach I'm pursuing.
Yeah. I have a question, if it's possible.
Yeah, one last question.
Yeah, just I wonder if we have to change our the paradigm of the lean manufacture or the lean thinking. My opinion is that we can stay in the framework of the lean thinking, but enhance it and introduce into this not only the performance paradigms, but also some concepts as circularity, low carbon, etc. So my opinion is, and when I teach supply chain, I stay into the lean thinking paradigm, because I think it is a very general approach that can help us to have a framework.
Okay, my reaction is very clear. Unless you don't naturalize the concept and you say lean management is the law, and you explain which are the, first of all, the lean management deployed by Toyota and conceptualized at the beginning has been completely westernized and has been very much reduced to a kind of waste reduction, optimizing costs. So there are different implementations of lean, but it's important that you uncover, you open the black box of lean, and then you say, okay, within this way, within this approach to lean, it makes sense and it's particularly reasonable to also introduce planetary boundaries and social perspectives and so on. But it's important to make these assumptions explicit, because lean management is even worse than sustainability. You can put whatever you want under this same umbrella, right? So that's why when I say social sciences are important, we need to bring what we have studied also in terms of thoughts, historical thoughts of our disciplines, to elucidate the rules of the game also of the professors, not only of the practitioners.
Yes, of course.
Thank you so much. I'm really sorry because we're already running out of time. So for the next steps, those of you who have been registered to a workshop, you have received another link, another Zoom link by email, so you can connect via this link. This discussion has been recorded, so you'll find the video of it. And for those of you who haven't been able to join a workshop, we really apologize. There were too many people interested, but there will be a report, so you can also follow up on what has been said during this workshop. And if you want to continue this discussion, because it's a bit frustrating now to not have more time to exchange with Valentina, you can also send us an email. So we can create an email conversation to keep in touch and continue to nourish and elaborate on this really interesting topic, which deserves much more than a few minutes. So thank you again, Valentina. Thank you to all of you. And so we'll see the ones who have been registered to the workshop.
See you, some of you, in a few seconds.